Back with another set of knives to take a look at that I picked up a little while ago, but I've had enough time to play around with, test, resharpen, all that sort of good stuff here. First up, we have this guy. This is the Sencut Jubil, Jubil. And it's interesting. They don't really have any particular designer associated with it. However, this is the Civivi Clavi, which is an Ostap design that they'd released, I think, a little bit earlier in the year. And yeah, there's your inspiration for it. So I don't know if they just didn't feel like accrediting him with it, or if this was a case of, well, we own that design, so we're going to make a little bit more budget version of it, which unfortunately I've seen happen with Ostap on quite a few designs, a couple from Civivi already, but there's been one or two others as well, so a little interesting, but there we go. This one is a little bit cheaper in that the blade steel on it, which they always do their absolute darndest to hide. On this guy is D2 rather than the what was this, Nitro V? Yeah, Nitro V. That and they didn't coat the blade, which, you know what, I'm happy for. Pretty much any time a company ends up making anything available in purple, they black out the rest of it, which is okay, I guess. But I kind of like how this looks. I don't necessarily need to have black with my purple, but yeah, that might just be me a little bit here. But still, very, very thin blade stock thickness on here, 2.3 millimeters. Yeah, it ends up fitting decently well in the hand. The pocket clip is not deep carry, but it also stays the heck out of the way, so that's nice. It is a little bit taller than the Clavi here, but a little bit thicker on the blade stock thickness. And there we go. And this one does not have nested liners on it. Neither one of them really has enough blade heft to make it have a crazy drop shut. Both of them are very, very easy to front flick open, which is the only way I can successfully do that. Well, okay. So I just proved myself wrong on there, but I generally have a hard time doing a lot of the front flipper unless I really have it prepared, which that's not how these knives come out of my pocket. So there's a bit of that. But yeah, it's an interesting knife. I don't really think that the Clavi is all that inexpensive, or I don't think it's too expensive. This one is obviously a little bit less. I think this was somewhere in the high 30s or something like that, whereas this was like what, 55, 60 or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, between the two of them, this guy is maybe, I don't know. I do kind of prefer the Civivi version of it over it, but still, it's a nice thin Warncliffe style blade for you to do. This is definitely a package knife through and through. Basically, what it's designed for. A whole bunch of being able to cut down boxes, especially the tape they're in and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I certainly don't really feel the need to get rid of it or anything like that. We also have a little bit of proud liners going on around here, but it's not enough to make it actually uncomfortable for me to hold on to. But still, yeah, another reason why I do end up preferring the Clavi to it. But there you go. Seeing as how this one has Nitro V blade steel and this one has D2, they're probably both going to cut right around the same. However, this one is, a little bit slicier in the blade stock thickness and stuff like that. So, you're not really gaining edge retention or losing it necessarily. You're just kind of stepping sideways just a little bit with it. Well, yeah, it seems like it's a budget version of the Ostap Hell design that for whatever reason, they didn't really want to, or felt the need to include him in the whole design phase or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. For him, it's probably going to be a lot different, but from the outside looking in, it does feel a little bit like a snub, like, oh, thanks for that design. You know how we could make it better? And then, do something like that. I guess kind of maybe what happened with the Mel Pardue, that knife that ended up becoming the bug out. I don't know, maybe something like that, but I don't know. To me, it just feels a little bit weird and different because they're still working with those designers. Anyway, next up, we have the Kizer Fighter. And this one I kind of left alone when it first came out, but was a little bit more interested as time went on. I can't for the life of me actually remember off the top of my head, and I don't have it written down who the designer of these guys are. But yeah, this thing, quite nice for the price, and a bit of the proceeds do go to a decent cause. It goes to the American Cancer Association. I think it's association, one of those. So yeah, the ACA, and that's good. But that's why we have this purple ribbon sort of thing here. A pink ribbon, especially associated with cancer, goes to the Susan B. Komen Foundation, which is pretty sketchy nowadays. Not a whole lot of it is actually going towards research, and most of that money is actually going towards paying the administration for it and all that sort of stuff. So I do appreciate that they went with the American Cancer Association a little bit more. It's a bit less for-profit sort of stuff. Obviously any kind of foundation is probably going to have some problems, but I have much less problems with the American Cancer Foundation. That being said, yeah, my mom had breast cancer back in the early 90s. Which was fun stuff. I mean, she's been in remission since, so that was great. She had to go through chemo, lost all her hair, blah, 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 all the 9 yards and stuff like that. And that's kind of what made me come back to this a little bit and think about it a little bit later. But then this thing is also a fantastic value. It is G10 for the handle here. We got purple underneath and then green on top. And as far as I know, that's the only color that we got going on here. And some interesting purple thumb studs. Obviously that is anodized there. 154 cm steel, fantastic amount of jimping going all the way up there. Kind of reminds me a bit of the Cormorant or the Hiccup, how far forward that goes, and I appreciate that. This thing is, it is a drop point, but I guess if this wedge was actually just removed, it would be a clip point. So, I mean, it cuts basically the same going on there. Super, super nice action on this guy. And it was only like $70 or something like that. I don't remember if I got it just under or just over. Well, still, we got the pocket clip. Nice inset into the handle scales there with more than one screw. Flat. This thing goes into the pocket pretty darn nice. It does, have that peel ply texture a little bit onto the clip portion there. So, that will be a little bit of a rough patch for a little bit before that ends up wearing down a little bit. But still, fantastic. We got nice access to the lock bar, pretty good cutting geometry and all that sort of good stuff. 2.7 millimeter blade stock thickness on here, less than 3, so that's nice and slicey as well. And, yeah, this is a pretty nice, comfortable knife. Fits my larger hands quite well. Yeah, I suppose it kind of looks like a 3.5 finger knife, but it feels like a full 4-finger knife to me. And the deep carry clip doesn't actually bother me all that much on it. Pretty darn good. I wish the plunge grind was a little less gradual, because you can see I've accidentally started to make a smile there, just doing a bit of a reprofile, but. Overall, this is a pretty fantastic knife, and one that I actually felt a little bit better than most others were actually doing some purchasing for it. So, yeah, it's a pretty good one. It also came with some other goodies in the box. And I unfortunately don't have it here in front of me. It's buried at the moment, so yeah. But it did come with a couple of extra goodies in there. Alrighty, next one up, we have the Kancept Convict. And yeah, this is it's a concept knife. It's the Convict, as we can see here. That's a Chris Conway design. Also, come on, yeah. Yep, sheepdog knives. Yeah, so this is a sheep's foot / Warncliffe kind of. This is much more sheep's foot than a Warncliffe thing. Something I've noticed recently is a large majority of concept knives, especially ones that are coming out right now, all pretty much have this kind of a thing. Drop point is kind of out as far as their current selection is going, so that's a little interesting. But yeah, here we go. This is a titanium frame lock here. We have a milled pocket clip that gets quite thin, so it looks and feels a little bit more like a stamped clip, and not in a bad way. I will say that. It is good here. And then we have 4 barrel spacers all in the back. A little strange, but you know, it is what it is. I do wish that the screws on either side of it were flush or inset, where you can definitely feel the 4 bumps there. So there's that. No milling going on the inside there, so this thing could be a bit lighter, but that would probably also make it a bit more expensive. The thumb thing, deployment thing for it is pretty interesting. This one I did get as a White Mountain Knives return, where they were saying that the detent on it is a bit strong. And my first thought is like, well, this is a frame lock, so for one, it probably wasn't, and they were trying to deploy it while they were accidentally putting pressure on the lock bar. Or 2, it's easy enough to fix. And for me, I don't really have any problems with it. It might be a little tiny bit more stubborn, and it can be if I'm trying to do a slow roll open with the flat portion of this. As you can see there, yeah, that is a little difficult, but that's not how I end up deploying it. I'll either get to the bottom of there, and if I don't fail it like I just did, or you can also reverse flick there because you have a decent amount of friction on that flat of the blade. There we go. Yeah, I did mention there's no weight relieving going on the inside. Otherwise, I would have said, you know, I'd also like to have the lock bar relief done on the inside here. Overall, it's a pretty good knife. The thing that I will say is, I think I like the sheepdog better. I mean, you know, it is the namesake design from Chris Conway, but I think it just does some things just a little bit better. There's nothing absolutely wrong at all with this one, and it is a little bit smaller, a little bit more slimmer this way than a sheepdog. Actually, I could probably pull one of those out. I have some Kizers laying around here. Well, that one's enormous. That's not going to help. Oh, here we go. Here's a standard size sheepdog. I don't have a standard size that's a titanium frame lock, but yeah, we can see we got basically the same kind of length, same handle proportions and stuff like that. But this thing is just a little bit more nice, where I can end up doing some choking up bits. It's got that notch out there that really helps for stabilizing the tip if you don't like to do a pinch grip and all that sort of stuff. But they're about the same price as a titanium version of the sheepdog there. I just think the sheepdog might be a little bit more versatile, but still. This is a pretty decent knife, S35VN blade steel on here. Don't really have too many complaints about it. It wasn't overly difficult to reprofile, but you know, it was also fairly high as far as the edge angle when I got it, so it didn't really take a massive amount of time to be able to mill that edge down to a 15-degree angle. Yeah, it's quite nice. and obviously the action, once you actually get fully over that detent, is nice and drop shotty. So, yeah, pretty good knife. Just, I think I would prefer a standard sheepdog maybe over this one in particular. But if that one was available and a sheepdog wasn't, ain't no problems with any of that. All right, next up, something weird. I was kind of curious, and well, here we go. This is the Rosecraft Barra. I think it's Barra. I don't think it's Barra. This is a Swags design. If you're familiar with them, they've done a couple of knives before. Let's see. They've definitely done the sway back here from Kizer. And also the chili pepper from also said Kizer. And she's done a few other designs as well. One of the few female designers out there in the industry, and has done some pretty darn good knives. Like I said, that the sway back and the chili pepper have done pretty well for Kizer. And there's the Mylea, which even the larger one, or I think they call it the More Mylea, or Morlea or something like that. I don't know. That's named after one of her best friends. That's beside the point. I don't actually own one because even the larger one's still a little bit too small for my hands. But this is kind of a new company that she's put out a couple of knives, and then there's been a couple of others who've kind of done that for this this newer company here. This is G10. I got the red color. I think there was one or two other colors, probably blue and maybe gray or something like that. But honestly, I couldn't tell you one way or the other. What I can say, the action on this is quite nice. That was me just barely trying to fail it. This blade rockets out there. It does quite a good job at that. The plunge grind on here is unfortunately damn near atrocious. You can see it ends way after the blade, and this thing, even though it has a thin blade geometry of 2.6 millimeters, it's real thick behind the edge. So I've done my best to sharpen this up to 17 degrees. And for this, I've mostly used my my belt grinder, because if you want to actually clamp this to a fixed angle sharpener, at least the few that I have, the two work sharp ones and a KME, you can't get to 17 degrees without just basically hitting the clamp instead on here, because the blade isn't tall enough for it. So I did this basically with the belt grinding attachment sort of thing, and that ended up having a little bit more of a smile put on there. So still, this thing is fairly thin on the blade stock, but the cutting geometry unfortunately isn't all that great. The handle on it, for the most part, is quite good. I like the very neutral thing with the finger thing there and getting a little bit of a swell on here. But the whole pry bar back end ends up ruining a lot of ergonomic things. You cannot hold this knife in a pinch grip because you're basically shoving a bottle opener into your hand at all times. So that really doesn't work. But it also does affect me quite a bit if I'm holding it in a saber grip. So I can get around that by doing a hammer grip, but with a knife this kind of a narrow, I don't really feel like I want to do, super crazy muscly cuts with this. It feels like it should be a bit more nimble. The pocket clip, pretty decent. Quite nice and deep carry. They could have gotten absolute deep carry, but they had the pry bar bottle opener sort of thing going on here. So yeah, one more really interesting thing about this thing here, and trying to see if it's mentioned anywhere on the blade. It doesn't look like it. Okay, so the other thing about this knife is the blade steel. It's AR RPM 9. That is Artisan Cutlery's proprietary blade steel that they have not offered any other companies to use. And they haven't really changed their stance on that, at least not publicly. So, that makes me think that this is probably an artisan cutlery / CJRB, being the OEM for this knife here. It's definitely not out of the ballpark. A lot of companies end up using OEMs and stuff like that, especially when they're first starting out to do them. A lot of more high profile and higher cost ones will use Riot or something like that for it. But there's quite a few of them, like the AM8 guys using shoot, I completely lost my train of thought on who exactly does some of their knives. I had mentioned it in the PMP2 review that I had done. But it's so, for the most part, I think this is essentially made, or at least assembled with the blade being made by CJRB in this particular case. And it's interesting. Like I said, the action's great on it. I think that for the most part, that this pry bar here on the back kind of ruins a lot of the ergonomics. It might have been kind of interesting if they'd included a couple more of these barrel spacers, so you could remove that if that wasn't something that you wanted. But overall, still, just the geometry of the blade on it isn't super fantastic. On the plus side, it is nice and cheap. I think these guys were like 30-something bucks. So, I at least didn't waste an entire crazy amount of money on these guys. And still, yeah, it feels super, super nice to deploy these guys. Alrighty. Speaking of artisan CJRB, here's the last one here. And yes, this is a Pyrite. And yes, there are 8,000 Pyrites. However, this was the first of the biggin. And what a biggin it is. Let's see if I can't find the original here. I should. Yeah, here we go. Here's the original one here. In the steel handle. I also have this one in a full titanium one. But like I said, there's like 80 million variants of this guy here. There are a couple of different variants of the large one. But, of course, I went with a steel one without, thin little steel liners on the inside. Because I don't have problems with these guys with button locks jamming or easily failing or any of that sort of stuff. So this thing is fantastic. It is heavy. It's 150 grams or 5.3 ounces. It makes sense. We do have that same trapezoidal milling kind of going on both sides there. Otherwise, this thing could have probably been easily like 6.5, maybe pushing 7 ounces, which would be way too much. But yeah, let's see. They have changed the blade stock thickness by virtually nothing, but they did. It's 2.7 millimeter blade stock, whereas the original guy here, 2.6. So they changed it just ever so slightly. But yeah, this thing looks hilariously large. And it even kind of looks and feels maybe like it's going to be hilariously large when you hold it in your hand. However, when I've actually gone to use this thing and cutting and everything like that, this thing feels like second nature. It is absolutely fantastic. Every bit as slicey as the original there. It is, 0.1 of a millimeter thicker, but we also have a taller blade so that geometry stays and or maybe slightly improves. The button is just the same. It's all sorts of fun to be able to deploy it in all the different ways. This does have their deep carry clip. I think some of the little bit more fancy ones might have a titanium milled pocket clip, but a lot of those also include, S35 VN or 20 CV blade steel, and they end up charging like $170 or something like that for them. So, this guy is still, it is more expensive than the original, but not by much. I think these guys by themselves go for like 50, and these ones were 62, somewhere around there. I might be a little bit off on that, but it's not much more expensive. Still using the AR RPM 9 blade steel going on here, and yeah, I'm quite happy with it. The action on these guys, fantastic, just like the originals. It also has a single kind of spacer washer on the show side, just like I've seen from the few different versions of the Pyrite and the Echo that I've taken a look at. Not sure exactly why they're there over on that side, or why that design continues to be on some of the newer ones, like the Echo. I said, like this guy, the Riff Raff, whatever the hell it's actually called. I don't know, but yeah, this thing absolutely fantastic knife, especially if you are looking for one that's a little bit longer in reach. Said the original one here, I still don't really have any problems getting a nice full grip on. But this one, you have a little bit more security there. The finger choil is about the same, which, for me, that kind of sucks, but I rarely use a choil anyway. But yeah, quite a nice knife, a whole lot of fun, and it's big in all sorts of fun ways. 3.69 blade length on this guy, whereas this one's what, 3.15 or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like probably about a half-inch difference there in the blade length. Interested to see exactly what they end up doing with these guys. I wouldn't mind seeing a contoured titanium or something like that handles for them. I have mentioned it before, but I think probably my favorite version of the Pyrite is this one right here. That is the original, but it's using titanium scales, just flat titanium scales with the AR RPM 9 blade steel. This makes this guy, I think it was like $75 or something like that, rather than the 50 of the original. But you have that sandblast finish on the titanium that really gives a heck of a lot more grip to it, which I appreciate. And it's also not well over $100 like a lot of the more fancier contoured versions are. But yeah, there you go. There's my favorite of the original. But so far, this large one's a heck of a lot of fun to play with. Heck of a lot of useful blade length that you got out of it. Just all sorts of fantastic knife. But alrighty, there we go. We got the large Pyrite. We have the Rosecraft Barra. We have the Kancept Convict. We have the Kizer Fighter. And we have the... Oh, crap, that's the wrong one. The Sencut Jubil. There. So those are the ones that I've taken a look at this week here. Looks like I've probably gone a little bit longer than I meant to again. Well, 5-ish minutes. It is what it is. And I got timestamps for everything down below. So if you're not interested in one of those, or you think I'm rambling on way too much on a particular knife, well, you can skip around. It's super easy to do. So, all right. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.